and welcome back to the pineapple grove. Oh, there's a hole there. I've fallen down a hole. Hope nothing's living in it. Welcome back to the pineapple grove by the sea. Oh, and I can actually see one of these fruits. They're not edible pineapples. They are some ocean-going pineapple, seafaring pineapple. I'd imagine salty coming out of this sand right on the sea front here. The Buddha said to, after the meal, bhikkhus, go and spend your days abiding in meditation. Your days abiding under a tree, in a cave, in your kuti, wherever that may be. I've chosen this afternoon to make that afternoon's abiding under the shade of these beautiful palms. You'll notice the absence of traffic noise here, talking, people, but wherever you go, there is sound. I can hear the ocean rolling in, as I'm sure you can also. The wind, as it breezes by my ears very nicely, keeping me cool. In the background, I'm sure I can hear crickets, but I think that's just the resonant sound of continual crickets or cicadas one has in these parts of the world. And that brings me on to a question, which I don't think I'm able or qualified to answer. I should get the questions out. I'm remembering this one, but I'd like to read it in order that I get it correctly. Well, there's a thing. Where do these questions go? So somebody asked me a question with regards to tinnitus. Here you are. Any advice to how to deal with tinnitus and making peace with it? It is that I wanted to see the question for and read correctly, because you have quite the right idea and way of phrasing your question, and that is not so much how to deal with tinnitus, but you then say, and making peace with it. Now, I'm not aware, I'm not suffering from tinnitus, this condition myself, and I don't know anyone personally whom does. It is, as I understand, a continual ringing or tone, or I would say a little bit more than that, something quite irritating sound, hearing phenomena continually in the background. Much like, for instance, cicadas or crickets, which are loud. I mean, cicadas register quite highly on the scale, the decibel scale, I'm sure, as loud as a chainsaw in some cases, down to just an annoying buzz. This is the only way I can appreciate how it must be to suffer from that, what is, I would imagine, at least mentally a debilitating condition, such as tinnitus. But what you say there is making peace with it. And I think all I can suggest you can do is, like when we're meditating with all sound distraction, is to know it as that. It is sound, but let's not call it distraction, let's call it a continuous reminder of this present moment. We are always continually brought back into the present moment when we are distracted by whatever source, or from whatever source, from our meditation object. We're trying to sit in samadhi, we're watching the breath as we're breathing in, we're breathing out, and a car whizzes by. Your attention is drawn to the sound of the car. But not only that, it is, where is the car coming from, where is the car going, what type of car is it, who is in the car? Not specifically those questions, that's just an example, but we have this tendency towards what is called papancha, rumination, thinking about the distraction. Therefore, at that point, it becomes a distraction. If we can very quickly see it as sound, the ears hearing sound, and know it as just that, it becomes just that, ears hearing sound and nothing more. If you have a continual sound, in the case I know of, say, the cicadas or the crickets, I tend not to notice them after a while. But similarly, I have lived by railway stations. I've lived at the moment where I'm staying, my kuti is on a relatively busy main road, not by Western world standards, but at times of the day it can be quite busy. Fortunately, in this country they're not continually sounding their horn. They don't do that here. Otherwise I wouldn't be able to put up with that, I don't think, because that is a very disruptive that causes disruptive emotions as well as the sound, let's say, because we're used to that from my part of the world as being a warning. So we are brought up with that warning. So if you're continually hearing a warning, it's hard to get used to. You do, like all these things. But I've lived up near railway stations. I used to live growing up by a church which continually rang its bell every 15 minutes, 24 hours a day. Progressive chimes increasing to a very long chime on the hour, and then subsequent numbers of how many hours throughout the day. So you could hear anything up to 12 dongs plus a 4 times repeated chord or tune prior to that every hour. And throughout my childhood I never noticed it after a few weeks of living in that house. We lived right next door to the church, next door to the vicarage, in fact, between the vicarage and the school. And you get used to it. But on Tuesday evenings I used to practice ringing these bells. So it was out of sync, a different timing and a different rhythm. And you'd notice it and find it very disturbing. And of course I wasn't thinking about this at the time. I just thought, why is it they have to do this every Tuesday night? Not thinking, actually, the bells ring, the same bells, continually. It's actually not physically the same bell, but from the same source. Continually, 24 hours a day, but only on Tuesdays you notice them. The other example is, and I'm by no means trying to compare this to tinnitus, subscriber, because I haven't experienced tinnitus. I'm just thinking of ways and talking, as I think, about how to, as you wisely say, make peace with this condition. Something's weird's happened to my phone. I don't like it when I keep dropping them in the sand, that's the thing. The fridge. It continually makes this all of the time, but then occasionally when it gets to its peak coolness, it switches off. And then we notice it. The fridge has just gone off. Isn't that nice? For a few seconds, and then that nice, that goes away, doesn't it? It's the same. When it comes back on again, you don't always notice it coming back on. It's there. But when it goes off, I think make peace with it. I don't think there's a cure, from what I understand. In that way, bring it into your arena of attention. Make it part of your meditation. Make it your meditation object. There is a practice often spoken of by Ajahn Sumedho, a very senior monk in this tradition, and he talks of the sound of silence, which is a hearing phenomena, whether it's an actual sound or something that's created internally, that one will pick up in certain states of samadhi. Not everybody can notice it, but those who do find it a very good way of keeping their attention in one place, using the sound of silence, so a tone, a ringing, a buzzing, something that is a sound that comes from within, as your meditation object. So you've answered better in your question than I can answer your question from someone who isn't experiencing it, and that is, all I can suggest is what you're suggesting, is that you try and make peace with it that you have. I don't think try and drown it out with alternative sounds. Maybe by noticing it, making friends with it, making peace with it, but then also combining it with your awareness of the breath. The attention, bringing the attention to the breathing in, the breathing out, the cooling, the releasing, the letting go might help you let go of some of the aversion you may or may not have, I don't know, to the ongoing sound that you experience. So I wish you well with your efforts there, and I hope that is of some use. Now I'll go back to the beginning of the questions. This, I thought it was mosquitoes, so I was ignoring this continual stinging, as one does get used to, but it's actually this plant. Now we as monks are not allowed to do anything to plants, gardening wise or anything, so I shall neatly thread this, if I can, make a little plait. It's very sharp prickles on it. Prickly pineapple. There we go. No, it doesn't want to know. I'll just have to continue thinking it's a mosquito. Hi, I know Buddhists, that's not the first question, is it? Oh, it is. I know Buddhists believe in heaven and hell, then do Hindus, Christians, Muslims, Jews and other un-Buddhists are going to hell? Okay, so I'm not sure I can answer that. I think you're saying that Buddhists believe in heaven and hell, and do we believe that all other religions are going to hell? No. Firstly, not all Buddhists believe in different realms. Some Buddhists believe in Buddhist cosmology, which involves multiple realms of heavens, notice I don't say there's one eternal heaven, and hell realms again, plural. I don't say there's one eternal hell realm. In Buddhist cosmology, there isn't one eternal heaven, one eternal hell realm. Nothing is permanent. All conditioned things are impermanent in nature. And we certainly don't believe that anyone of any other faith or any other religion, just through the absence of Buddhism in their life, or even their choice not to practice the way of Buddhism, we do not believe that those people will necessarily go to any lower form of rebirth, say into hell realms or animal realms, because it's all dependent on their actions of body, speech and mind throughout this existence and previous lives. Even if you don't believe in previous lives, then in this life what you do will have results. So you are a result of the causes and conditions that you have put in place. So through all of your actions of body, speech and mind, your future is created. If you believe in life after death, if you believe in rebirth, you will understand from that your rebirth will not be good if you behave badly, but it will be good if you behave well. So whether you're a Muslim, a Christian or a Jew or a Buddhist, if you behave well, your rebirth will be good. That's not to say there may be in other religions, and I'm not isolating any, some contradictory beliefs in terms of, say, if there was a religion that encouraged the drinking of vast quantities of alcohol every day. I don't think there is, but if there was, or taking of some kind of hallucinogenic drugs, then I would suggest that the following deeply of that kind of faith, that kind of practice, would only lead to an unfortunate existence within this life eventually, let alone future rebirth. I hope that helps. I hope that makes sense, actually. It kind of did to me, but you can't always tell, can you? Right. May seem like a silly question, so my apologies. But why do Buddhist monks always shave their heads when the Buddha is always depicted as having long hair tied up? Well, that's not a silly question at all. It's a very good question, and one question I asked myself continuously, and when asking others never really got a satisfactory answer. Because we see these Buddha Rupas, we've just put a new one in my new temple, this little room I'm borrowing for a while, whilst it still rains. This man was just talking to me just as I came to sit down here and saying, oh, it's so disastrous and it's raining every afternoon. And I was thinking, well, I find it quite nice actually. I can just go and sit in my room and continue with my meditation, cools the air down. But of course I think he's talking from the point of view of potential tourism and his customers, because this is a beach after all, in what is a tourist a country that relies very heavily on the tourist industry. And I would imagine if the weather's not so good, people don't come so much, although it can't be predicted, can it? Anyway, weather aside, what were we talking about? Yeah, so the Buddha Rupa is there. It has, again, got these tight little curly black hair if they colour the statue in colours, but mine's just plain, but they have this always black curly hair with this seemingly bun on top, yes, like a ponytail put in a bun. Well, actually what that is not quite as it seems. It is quite correct. The Buddha insists that when you ordain, you shave your hair, the hair on the head. This meant in the Buddha's time, the beard, and you'd have very long hair, probably in that time, that would be up in a bun or a ponytail or some kind of dreadlocks. And this would be cut off with a knife or a sword and then shaved down to the skin, face and everything. And this is a very important part of renunciation. At that time also, it was a very significant part of the caste system, where you come from, your means, your family, was kind of denoted by your hairstyle and hair length and the quality of hair. The only people walking around without hair were people whom were convicts from prison, thrown out of prison, whom had had their hair shaved off for practical reasons of cleanliness and lice and fleas, and some of the real down and outs, or the patients who are of ill health, again for practical reasons. So the real lower echelons of society would have their heads shaven in those times. I think, I'm not 100% sure on my accuracy, but that makes sense to me. So you were bringing yourself to a form of humility by shaving off your hair and identity. And someone has later replied to this question, this subscriber's question, with this idea of, well, it's to signify anatta. But specifically this question is, why does the Buddha always have hair? Well, in the Vinaya, he has to set a standard, a rule. You're allowed your hair to grow up to 2 fingers breadth. At a maximum, because of course when you're wandering around, it isn't also always that easy to keep shaving your head. In my tradition, we shave our heads just before, the day before the full moon, the day before the new moon. So the day before our Repository Day, when us monks get together for the recitation of the Patimokkha, our Vinaya, our rules. And in those rules it contains these instructions about head shaving. So the limits say we can't get to a suitable place to shave our head, or we just don't want to. We can allow our hair to grow, but no longer than 2 fingers breadth. And I guess this applies to the beard also. But we tend to shave this beard every few days in this tradition, and these heads every 15 days by the moon. But why does the Buddha not do that? Well, he very possibly did. It's not just because he was a Buddha he didn't need to. He did, but he probably allowed it to grow to 2 fingers breadth. And because his hair was naturally curly, there were 32 auspicious signs of a Buddha. One of them is your hair only comes out curly, like this, but not curly in specific coils. These are mythology, Buddhist mythology, so to be believed, not necessarily understood or accepted as fact. But whether or not that is the case, he still could have sufficiently grown his hair to 2 fingers breadth, and it would appear in the representations now of him that he would, if you see him in these early days as a monk, in some of the paintings in the temples, he's very clean shaven head. Actually, that's quite rare, actually. That's usually his disciples. But he normally is depicted with this hair, with the curls. Assuming it didn't form these curls, but it clearly does in the images we see of him, why this bun then? Why this ponytail? One of the other 32 auspicious signs of a Buddha is that you have a bump, this bump here on the head. So it's not an actual rolled up piece of hair, it's a bump where the hair is still 2 fingers breadth growing over the bump, so it appears to have this bun on top of his head. I don't feel I'm speaking 100% respectfully of our dear teacher and his image when I say bun, but I can't think of any other way to describe it. There is a name, I know. I used to have long hair before I became a Buddhist. Very long hair, and I always had it in a kind of a bun, more like a pineapple, I think, than a bun, but it was practical. But no, the Buddha's hair wasn't long, it was cut short and regularly. Some say it didn't even grow, because after the first time it was shaved, it grew to a certain length and then it stopped growing. I don't normally move, but because I'm sitting down a hole, I'm going to move one leg a little into this polite posture for sitting, because this way I'm not so much down the hole one side. So, in answer to your question, the Buddha had his hair cut short, but just to these 2 fingers breadth, and the ponytail bit is a bump on his head that is an auspicious sign of the Buddha. Yes, you say long hair. The Buddha is always depicted as having long hair and tied up. Yes. I hope that answers that question. It's a good question, not a silly question at all. The phone's going, I think maybe it's overheating or something, because it's flashing. I don't know what that means when it's flashing. Dear Guruji, does your feet not hurt when walking barefoot for alms? Is it really necessary to do it barefoot? It's one of the rules in the Vinaya. We go on Pindapat alms round in bare feet. I'm not exactly sure as to all of the rules in the Vinaya come about for a reason, a practical reason, and they were established in the life of the Buddha, in the time of the Buddha, for our benefit, really. And I don't know the story behind that, but it's just a rule in the Vinaya. We go on in bare feet, and also people offering food must also slip their shoes off before they can offer the food to us. So I'm not sure the practical... You're not asking that, so fortunately, why? You're asking me, does it hurt? Well, at first, yes. When I was in Thailand, for that 7 months just recently, I hadn't been walking on alms round for a long time. And I often walk around like now. I've come down to here in bare feet, walked across the road, across the railway line, down a path to this sandy beach, because the shoes are you don't need them on the beach, and you just have to carry them all of the time. And I often walk around in bare feet anyway. The reason I appreciate walking in bare feet on alms round is that you walk more mindfully in bare feet. When we practice walking meditation, it should always be in bare feet, not even socks, bare feet really. So you're feeling the contact of your feet with the floor. Of course, you're doing that in an environment where the floor is not going to be causing you any pain. But when it is painful, you just know that as pain, this is hurting, and you keep walking, and mindfully accepting that this is suffering and noticing the aversion you have to it. Eventually, your feet get used to it. It's not just the mind, they physically get tough on the bottom, like shoe leather soles, you know. My feet are very tough. I walk on all arms around here. I've not been able to measure the distance yet, because I didn't have that location turned on the phone. But I think I found how you turn it on now, so tomorrow I should know how far it is I walk. But it's a long way, because I walk, let's say 5 miles an hour for an hour and a half. So that's probably 7 or 8 miles, which is about 9 kilometers, isn't it? But I'm not walking at 5 miles an hour, of course, because I'm on arms round. I'm walking probably at 2 miles an hour, half speed. You walk very slowly. And with bare feet, you can walk more mindfully and slowly, and you can better enjoy the experience. Pindapat isn't just a perfunctory rushing to get your food. It's a very enjoyable, wonderful. It's a wonderful thing to see if ever you get the opportunity to see real monks on Pindapat in a Buddhist country, and to do. It is a most amazingly beautiful experience to receive the generosity of so many people directly from their hand into your bowl to sustain your life for one more day. And they know you get no other food. They know you won't eat in the afternoon. They know you're a monk keeping all these rules. So they support you with just a little bit of food in your bowl. but each person, the numbers of them, makes up a substantial amount of food. And even today, which wasn't a busy day on my Pindapat, I still had more than enough to share with the people in the road, the neighbours whom didn't have so much food, and be quite full as I am now myself. So it's a wonderful experience, and it's better experienced also in bare feet. You're feeling each step as you go along. Is it really necessary to do it in bare feet? I think so. It's traditional and it's necessary from the point of view it is a rule. So we have to. And anyone coming with us, if the Kapil was to come with me and help me, or an Upasaka or a lay Buddhist, they ought to be in bare feet also. Yeah, I was trying to recall and think of what the practical scenario behind that story is, or reason. I'll look it up. If I can find an answer to that, I'll let you know. But I mean, thank you for your concern. My feet are fine. I've just walked. The only time it can be difficult is when it's very hot, like this time of day, when I walk back. If I have to walk across a black tarmac road, and there is one here, they're quite rare in this part of the world, I know that will be very hot. So you just walk across it quickly, or sometimes the sand can get very hot. In that case, if you can get to some water before you walk on the sand, if you wet your feet, then the dirt or the sand sticks to your feet and gives you a layer of protection from that burning, because you can severely, I've burnt my feet quite severely before on sand. It's like really like molten glass in midday temperatures, so you have to be careful with that. But in the morning it's never a problem, of course. Okay, Asian water monitor lizard. Water monitors are prone to attacking humans when threatened and should be handled with caution. The bite of a water monitor can inflict a severe injury. Probably, if you don't bother them, they won't bother you. Thank you for your advice. Now this you're referring to is what they call here a waran, spelt W-A-R-A-N, varan or waran. It's a lizard about 1.5 meters long, with this long tongue which seems like about 0.5 meter in length, forked tongue I think it is, that comes out. Thank you for that information. I'll steer a little clear from them. They tend to walk away quite quickly if they see you, but there are very many of them around here, I've noticed. Not so much down on the beach, but this beach is onto this beach come many rivers. This is a country of rivers, Sri Lanka, and waterfalls from all the beautiful mountain forests, and all meeting up into deltas and coming into these, what do they call these watery lagoons and such like. So these are water dwelling creatures. I think they must have crocodiles in there too, I would imagine. But I think all if you're kind, you're practicing metta, and you're offering no threat, I think most creatures will just rather get out of your way than do you any harm. But it was good, useful information. Thank you. Oh, and there's the question I've already answered. I'm really worried. How can such a simple meal provide you with enough nutritions, especially when you only have one meal a day? Oh, well, please don't worry. There's no need to. I've been eating like this. I've had this one meal a day diet for now more than 8 years, and before me and now there are many monks whom have been doing that, countless number of monks, for much longer than 8 years, right back to the time of the Buddha. So for 2,566 years people have spent their lives, 10 years, 20 years, 30, 40, up to 80, 90, 80, probably 80s about the top years of their lives, just eating one meal a day in this fashion, this Buddhist monk or nun's diet, and to no ill effect. And certainly I've had no ill effects. In fact, I'm very healthy. I think I can be as bold enough to say that I'm possibly a little bit more healthy than some of my friends of my own age. Well, considering 4 of them in this last Vassa have just died, I'm certainly, for no reason, Well, obviously a reason, but I would think it's more to do with their lifestyle and diet than anything else. Considering that, I think the 1 meal a day is really not a problem. You eat well. This food I'm getting on Pindapart fills the bowl, and you try not to just eat all of the nice sweet cakes and things. You have rice, you have dal, you have vegetables. That's all your body needs. If you can have some bonus bits of nice tasty foods on top of that, and some fruit of course, then you really are living a very healthy lifestyle. You eat a sufficient amount in the morning. You don't have to have one meal. That's my chosen practice. It's one of the Dhutanga practices to eat just one meal in one sitting. Actually, that'll be answering another question, so I'll bring this other question into this part. So, so far I've had only great benefits, because you eat sufficient food, nutritional food, assuming you can get it, and I've been fortunate, and usually you can. Even in India, which isn't a Buddhist country, rice and dal every day, and not even vegetables, just vegetable water, the water the vegetables are cooked in, was sufficient for 3 years every day, and not considerable amount of it. Okay, 3 big spoons of rice and 2 or 3 spoons of dal, which is a runny dal. It's not the thick dal that we're used to. And then you'd get, especially as a monk, you'd get a little extra, this very sweet stuff, which is a kind of a rice juice and jaggery, sugar, that they pour on with some sort of maybe yellowy colouring in there, to give you some energy. I survived on that for a few years. Now, it did have some ill effects, a little. I have to take, or had to take then, a little bit of vitamin B12 supplements, because I wasn't producing the energy from the food. You get vitamin B12 from meat, you get it from dairy products like eggs and hard cheese, but not eating meat and not having eggs or hard cheese available to me, and I don't really eat those much anyway, I wasn't getting that ingredient you need to convert your food to energy, so you get a little bit weak feeling. But with some vitamin B12 supplements, which I was able to get in India, that soon solves the problem. So thank you for your concern. Now, the other question was, why... here we go. Not sure why the fruit inside the bowl. Why can't Bhante keep it out and eat after the meal? Well, Bhante or Bhantes, bhikkhus, bhikkhunis can eat anything they like in any way they like, up until noon. There are no rules. We have rules about how we eat, like we eat nice and tidily, politely, not slurp, chippy chapper it's called in the Pali. They have a word for this, whatever you'd call that. We're not allowed to lick our fingers. There are all kinds of rules about the way we eat. But content-wise, we can eat as much of food. We're advised to eat a small amount and just enough. But there's no real Vinaya rule that we're breaking if we overeat in the day. But one of the 13 Dhutanga practices, in fact there's 2 of the 13 Dhutanga practices, which are extra ascetic practices the Buddha allowed, and you can adopt yourself as a bhikkhu if you wish, that I have adopted for a long time, and that is I only eat the food in my bowl, and I only eat in one sitting. So the food offered to my bowl, I may take some food out for sharing, giving to others, but then I eat what is in that bowl. Or sometimes if you're staying in a monastery, you empty it all out, and then the food is distributed, shared, mixed up, and then brought around. You serve your food into the bowl. Now, some people put some on their lid, some in a dish, have a starter, main course, a sweet, and spend a long time. I have it all in the same bowl together, including this fruit. So it's out of choice. I prefer that. It's a good way of mindfully eating just the right amount. The bowl is sized. They base the size of your robe on the size of your bowl, and the size of your bowl on the size of your robe. It's a chicken and egg question. I don't know which comes first, but base it on the basis that your robe is, if it's very large, you're a very large person, you have a very large bowl, you eat a lot. The bowl is like representative of the size of your tummy, your stomach when it's full. If you filled the bowl you would not be able to get all of that into your tummy for sure. My bowl half full would very much fill me up. So a third full is sufficient if it was just filled, with some same thing, to a third full. But of course it's not. It's packets, it's fruit, it's bananas, it's curries, it's rice, it's jelly and custard. It's everything all in there. But that I like as a practice. I'm eating this food as fuel to live another 24 hours. And it's food that is given to me, and I appreciate that all in one place. And I don't want to spread it all out like a dinner party or like eating in a restaurant. If I wanted to do that, I could go back to lay life and eat in restaurants and have dinner parties. I eat for functionality. This also helps with the allaying of these cravings and desires, which are often resulting around food and hunger. Hunger in the evening, hunger in the afternoon even, is not usually because you're starving. Your body isn't much usually if you've been walking a lot, yes, you can feel weak, but you can have some jaggery, it's allowable, some sugar, or you could have some clarified butter or some oil. You can, what's the other thing? Chatu madu, honey is a good thing. You can have that to just settle the tummy if it's rumbling, let's say, and also if you're feeling a little faint, as has happened to me when I've been walking or travelling in the afternoon, the sugar takes that faintness away. But you're not starving, you're just focusing, dwelling on the desire to do something, to eat, to have this sensual gratification, which, as we know, is an insatiable desire. The more you eat, especially of tasty things, the more you want. It's not just because you're hungry. So there are reasons behind it. But yes, I mean, I could put the fruit separately, and then when I finish my meal, have the fruit, peel it all nicely. In fact, the Kapia keeps saying when he's there, he says, oh, he'll peel it, and this and that. I said, no, just stab it as they have to, and then offer it to me. I just like to eat it with my hands in my bowl. Even a mango, you cut it and you open it up, and then I can use a spoon to scoop it out, scoop around that awkward pip thing. But mango is a very delicious fruit to me, and I don't mind whether it's in the bowl or not. Today the mango wasn't so ripe, so it was beautiful, very tasty. It was just right actually, but it was that firm kind of mango. So I had the knife, the Kapia stabbing knife, and sliced it up into my noodles. It was very delicious. Noodles and mango, and some coconut curry. It was very delicious, and some buns with vegetables in, if you can imagine, all in my bowl. Very delicious, making myself hungry, you see. Phra Dan, could you talk about the Bojangers? I tell you what, I think I'll talk about the Bojangers, and also how do they tie in with Patitiasam Upada. I will talk about that in a talk, I think, coming soon, if you don't mind. I won't lose that question, don't worry. It will be there. Oh, the questions have gone. There we go. What is your chanting? Not Namo Tassa, the second one. Somebody fortunately has answered this for me, because I wouldn't know which video you're referring to, but it was the reflection on the food. So what I was just talking about, we say Pati Sankayoni so Pindapatam Pati Sewami Noayana. I won't go through the whole thing. We're chanting in Pali that this food is not for beautification, not for joy, enjoyment, not for pleasure, just to sustain these bodies for another 24 hours. Something to that effect. We chant this before we eat the meal, and that was the chant you were referring to, and somebody did answer it for you. So thank you for the question. Bonfire night in Britain, the start of winter and the dark nights where fire is your friend. You were referring to the Katina festivals and all of the fire. Yes, I mean, fire is our friend, and the dark winter nights, and it's a sort of a winter solstice festival of kinds at that time of year. I think yes, but perhaps the bangers are not so friendly to all beings, are they? These days I think there's a bit more awareness about that. Domestic pets. In these Asian countries where bangers are going off continuously, and especially in India, every day of the week for different festivals here and there, I don't think the pets, the animals, mind so much. It's not a problem. because they're like the bells, like the tinnitus, like the train station, like the airport you're living by, like the fridge. You get used to it. So do the animals, they're the same. But of course in the UK, where this is not happening, just on one night of the year, but of course it does now spread, I understand, weeks either side, with children getting bangers, but it's a condensed period of time when there's these bangs going off that the animals, domestic pets especially, aren't used to. So it's a bit sad for them, and hopefully this is now being addressed as an issue and being looked at. And I know horses particularly, I really do like horses, but I know that horses are something, you don't see many horses in India or this part of the world really, but they're very skittish about this because they're so very they're quite nervous creatures, horses. They're not like these cows, which are more stoic, oxes and bulls, and bison, but they can be a bit jumpy. So yeah, I do feel for all beings at such times being into this sort of artificial war zone that they're forced into around just a date. I appreciate that you point out that in many cases we have the answers to our own questions. What you teach so well is how we can learn to recognise those answers in ourselves. Well, thank you. That's a comment, not a question, so thank you for your kind comment. I'm not sure how it ended up. I put it in. I know why I put it in there, to remind you that I'm now doing the morning chanting, because the same subscriber asked about morning, or mentioned that they enjoyed the morning chanting, and then because I'd stopped morning chanting, I thought I'd better let them know I was starting it again. So that subscriber says the same, but it's very important. Yes, often your questions, in order for us to ask a question, we have already in our own minds formulated an answer. It's part of the question. So we can often look at the question and find an answer within it ourselves. But it's often also very important to get another perspective, point of view, and air that question for that reason, and have your attention directed to it. So I appreciate your comment and appreciate your wisdom for understanding that point of view, that perspective on questions. In the heat, these devices, you see, are not like human bodies. They're not thermostatically controlled. They don't sweat. So all of the AI you like, its only answer to these things is to, when they get hot, turn them off. So I hope you've not been turned off there and I'm talking to no one, because you're in the sun and I'm in the shade. When I say you, I mean the camera, the phone, the camera phone. How long have I been talking for, I wonder? I ought to make this the last question. So Bojangers, that I'll come to in another talk. And there's this question that this subscriber has been inspired to follow morning puja of some description each day to begin her practice. So Anumodana sadhu, sadhu, sadhu for that. It is a good way to start the day, and that's why I'm doing it again. I'm not a devotional practice monk generally, and this morning's first attempt at doing it live was a little bit hit and miss. So I maybe did a bit too much chanting. I was really testing the internet, testing the lighting, testing the external noise environment as to where I would be doing it, and putting it to its extremes, and also myself. So it will calm down to a nice, more subtle level to bring our minds towards the day ahead, or if you're looking at it in the evening, the evening's practice, or reflecting on the day that's gone by. And I'm going to try and make it sort of time neutral in that sense too. And I'll only be doing it once a day live, so it might be hopefully useful to me. It's useful. I'm doing it anyway, but sharing it with you live, hopefully it's useful also. It's also useful, I'm doing it anyway, but doing it anyway alone can sometimes feel a bit, I don't know why I'm doing this alone. If there's even one monk there or two, you're not alone. But alone, you often think, I could just sit and can just meditate. But when there's somebody watching, even one person, then it's very much encouraging to go through the formality and enjoy it that way. So I do enjoy it, and will now, hopefully it worked this morning and I'll continue to do it. So thank you for also bringing that, reminding me, talking about that. And final question, this is from someone living in Sri Lanka in Colombo, who wants me to talk about generally being fed up, being down, depressed, and fed up with samsara and life and suffering and dukkha. And I'd like to also leave that for the next talk also. So Bojangers or that, both will be covered in due course. I do apologise to you both if you've sent those comments in a while ago, but as you know, I've been travelling and I've had a certain amount of catching up to do. I think I'm caught up now, so with questions and answers, so we can now I can relax and sit in the next video and just talk, and I like to do that. There's nothing, no phones in the way to look at, go wrong, get sandy. I can sit and give you all of my undivided attention, which I will look forward to doing next time. This time, thank you for watching. I hope there's been something useful there for you that you can use in all of your daily activities, and if so, I hope you can share it with others. If not, please just let it go, and may you be happy and stay well. Now, a question you so often ask is about what do you do about pins and needles and numb legs and things, which I don't normally get, but I think I have got a bit of a numb leg from sitting down in this sandy hole today. Okay.